Start
hear
recording.
us and. Okay. Okay,
Uh-oh.
so he's come. All right, so
Okay,
we'll wait
let
for
me
Steve to come
pause.
back in.
I'll pause.
Okay.
Did Steve start again to see?
Right.
Okay. All right, so we'll call our meeting to order. Good morning,
Morning, good
everyone.
Good morning.
Everyone had a chance to review the agenda. Any changes, additions?
No,
Okay. Anissa, is there anyone here from the public for a comment?
There is not.
Okay. First order of business is review the minutes from our June 2022 meeting. I was not there, though I just will state, this is something that comes up probably every time, that you can, and correct me if I'm wrong, Anissa, but if I remember correctly, this was, I think Anissa looked this up, you can vote if you were not present at the previous meeting. Or am I wrong there?
I have looked that up, and I don't. Yes, I believe that's the case.
Yeah, that's my memory. So
you can't move it or second it, but you can
Right.
vote
you
yes.
can
Okay.
vote. Okay.
Thank goodness Tracy is here. Okay.
Yeah, and may we have a motion to accept the minutes from the June meeting?
Yes.
Okay,
I second.
great, thank you. Any corrections, any discussion?
Nope.
All right. So all in favor of accepting the minutes from June 2022?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, passed unanimously. And thank you, everyone. I was unable to attend. There was our one in-person meeting in the last, 2 years? And I happened to be out of town.
You might get another chance. We don't know.
Right?
We don't know.
Okay, next on our agenda is the discussion of the 3 applications we received for reprogramming the CDBG CV funds. Thank you, Anissa, for getting the process going and getting those applications in. Thought the
I
3
never
applications. I'm sorry, Steve.
I didn't get a copy of that. There was you mentioned that there was an attachment, but I never got the attachment.
Oh,
But I can look at it on the screen, I guess.
It
Yeah.
was just in, it was, when I opened it, it was just included with the whole agenda business, the whole thing.
right. That was the second email Anissa sent. So initially it went out separate in a PDF, and then Anissa sent another email with the entire agenda package. And that's, I think, was it yesterday? I have to go back and look at the
It
date.
was Wednesday. I'm sorry. So the what I sent on Tuesday, people didn't get I thought you might want to start reviewing the applications. So I'm sorry if you didn't.
Yeah, although what I received on Tuesday didn't have the attachment
Huh.
on it, and what I received yesterday didn't have the attachment either.
Okay, I wonder if for something in your email is filtering it out.
Right, because you are CC'd on that email from Tuesday, Steve.
Okay, well, let me reduce my screen and see if I can find it, because I wanted to read it, but I couldn't.
If that ever happens, do feel free to reach out to me. And
Okay.
also, just so you know, when the agenda packet itself is sent out, which happened on Wednesday in this case, it's on the city's website as well at the Agenda Center.
Okay. Oh, okay. See, now I'm looking at Fernando's email, and the attachment is included in the email that he just sent to say that he was going to be late. But in the email that I received, it wasn't there. I got the agenda, but not the actual attachment. I only got 2 pages with the agenda instead of the 51 pages that it looks like there was.
Yeah.
Okay, that's weird.
Yeah, it is kind of strange.
Technological
anyway.
mysteries.
Yeah, sounds like something is in your system is preventing those attachments from coming through.
Yeah, I just have a regular Outlook.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right. Well, we did receive 3 proposals for use of the funds. I'm just going to pause a second. I see Fernando's dialing in, so let him get in, and then we'll once he's set, then we'll start the discussion. So
I'm here, I'm set.
great,
Welcome.
good timing, Fernando.
Good morning.
Sorry for the delay.
Don't be sorry, it's fine.
Yeah, no problem. We're just about to start the discussion of our 3 proposals for the reprogrammed funds.
Right.
Let me get down to the first one here. Excuse me.
Can I ask one question? I forget, was this sent to everybody or did we just pick these 3? I can't remember to send.
You directed me to send it to organizations that had successfully spent down their
Okay.
previous CDBG-CV, and actually there ended up not being that many, or spent down or were on track.
Okay,
So these 3 got it, so did INHS. We had previously asked Salvation Army if they wanted to submit a proposal for reprogramming, which they were considering, but they decided they didn't have the capacity. And that was it. That was all
Okay.
that received it.
that's what I thought, but I couldn't quite remember.
So the first application, you see us on our screen, Anissa's sharing her screen with us. And from the packet that Anissa sent on Wednesday, it's on page 6 out of the 51 pages.
Yeah,
So page
got it.
6 of 51.
Got it.
And our first application is from Catholic Charities of Tompkins, Tioga Counties, Aid for Immigrants. Funding amount $17,000. Anissa, you want to take us through this?
Sure, and I did, because we're still waiting to find out what the final balance will be. We think it's about, I think last time I told you it was about 17,800, but somebody's submitting a voucher that's slightly more. So I told people it would be about 17,475,000, but for the purposes of the application to just put in 17,000, but we would consider the full amount of whatever's available. So this is for Immigrant Services Program, which I know you know well. They received some previous CDBG-CV for their doing outreach during COVID-19. And and by the way, I think I told you this already, but we're using the application that we already created. I told them they didn't have to fill out every section. I told them which sections to fill out just so that they would all be kind of congruent. But we didn't change the date on the applications in case that was a little confusing. So in speaking to Sue and looking over this application, they have been, first of all, you see in the second paragraph there, seeing an uptick in evacuees from Afghanistan and also the Ukraine. So they are working with some, sort of new populations, although I know that they always worked with Afghanis. And she talks a lot about how when people who are very new to them are coming to them, they're really doing a lot related to health and COVID prevention, talking to them about what's available, helping them get set up with health resources. Many people who are new to the country are not familiar with what's available or even how to get vaccinated. So they have been doing a lot, it sounds like, during this entire time for that population. So they're really continuing, they're proposing to continue this type of service with them when they meet with them. Let's see. So who they would be reaching, because this is always very important to us, is really the same population that they do with this program, which ticks a lot of boxes. And that is basically the gist of their application. They do feel like they could meet, I wrote this down, about 36, sorry, on the first page,
Yeah,
36 people.
Yeah.
And they would be 100% below 80% AMI. Most would be City of Ithaca residents. Are there any questions about this one that I might be able to answer for you?
Yeah, it would be 26 people. I did the math
Okay.
in the city. Yeah.
Sorry, is there a clock attached to this, a deadline attached to this?
Yes.
Funding? They need to be
Yeah,
able to
we
use it?
asked people when I notified them, I said, we're looking to have this spent by summer of 2023. HUD wants us to have 80% of our original CDBG CV grants spent by summer of 2023. And so I forget if she filled this out here, actually, the timeline. So all of them know that that's when they need to have it done. Sorry,
Okay.
I don't see that on her timeline. Or maybe I'm just not finding the timeline.
Yeah, well, I expect this
Yeah.
amount of money, they'll be able to spend it
Yeah.
in that amount of time. I
Right,
didn't
and
know if
this
it was-
is,
If it was end of year or end of summer or fiscal year or something like that, it could be a little
Yeah.
tighter, but if they have
Yeah,
till next year.
They have basically 12 months or as soon as the contract
Right.
can be executed. The benefit of these groups is they already have a contract with us. So hopefully for Charles, that would make it a lot easier to create the new contract. Although OAR is proposing some different things in their application, so is DICC.
right. Yeah, that's one thing I noted, that these are three organizations who are familiar with us and should have no problems with the reporting
Right.
aspects. And just want to note the Catholic Charities proposals for staff and fringe benefits.
Yeah.
Okay. No further questions, comments on this application?
No.
All right, we'll go down to the next. Excuse me. Which is OAR.
Oh, I'm sorry. In mine, it's DICC.
Oh, wait a minute. Maybe
It's shopping. Yeah.
I went too far down. Hold on a sec. All right, here we go. Sorry, Catholic Charities. Oh, God.
Drop inside.
I'm getting there. Drop in.
It's hard when they all
Thank
look the same.
All right. So you can see on the first page, the project goals has to do with additional staff to help with some of the I don't know how to phrase it, assisting with the children as they come in because they have limited entry into the building where parents and caregivers are able to drop off the youth. And there is a matching component here. The 17,000 from us matched with 10,000 from the agency. So the whole project costs $27,000. Were there any? I'm sorry, go ahead.
The only thing I wanted to say there is I did let applicants know that they didn't have to have a matching for this. But they could put it in if they had it. So it appears that maybe Catholic Charities didn't have something like that, but DICC does. I will say that we did reach out to them because one of the things that they're applying for is PPE. And we know that as you may recall, the Child Development Council had applied for CDBG funds for PPE for their small in-home providers, and the in-home providers had trouble documenting all their PPE expenses. So we reached out with to DICC to see if they might have any similar difficulties, and she said no. They, unlike the small providers, they buy it in bulk from vendors, and they already had a track record with us of with their previous CDBG CV to be able to document all their PPE expenditures. So just so you know that.
The only issue I have with the PPE expenditures is now we know it's mostly air. It's
Mhm.
not so much like washing everything 500 million times. I mean, that cuts
Yeah.
down the other stuff, but I don't know. Just saying it.
Well, I wonder if that's different for children though, since they naturally tend to get into a lot of stuff and use
Yeah,
their
but
hands a lot.
But I think this is really an air spread thing, not, lots of other things spread by touch and,
I see what you're saying. Okay.
yeah, but I think mainly what we've found is it's air, which is, yeah, and so I was a little confused. Are we talking about, we're talking about staff to just help with drop off and,
Yeah, it sounds like because they're still in kind of a constrained mode, and I get the impression that they're still using socially distant guidelines that were probably put in place at the beginning of the pandemic, where there's like fewer children per each staff person, that having this extra person helps them kind of with all the protocol that they put in place because of the pandemic.
okay. The other thing I would say about this is they're saying it would affect 85 children, 70% cities, so that's 60 children, but only 55% or less than 80% AMI.
Yeah, I had asked her about that. It seems like because they're not up to 100% of serving people or serving the families that they used to, they do have a goal to serve as many LMI families as they can. But so they expect that to rise. I will say also another thing that comes into play here is they're using a different metric when they look at poverty than we are. They use federal poverty level, which is quite a bit different than AMI.
Okay.
80% AMI is quite a bit higher than federal poverty level. So there is that confusion too, but it's what you're bringing up is really important, Tracy, because whatever they say, they're going to need to document that for us for IDIS. So better that they err on the side of lower than not being able to reach it.
Okay, so what you're thinking then is actually they may be talking about their federal instead of the AMI.
Yes, and I wish this were a little more fully spelled out in their in their application, but yes, I talked to her and they use federal poverty level, which is quite low. And as you can see there in the first paragraph, she says currently 45% of the 85 children enrolled are living in poverty. But to us, we're looking at that AMI number, which is quite high. So it's it's not as clear as I think that would be great to have it for us. I can certainly, if you want me to reach out to her more to, more fully explain that. But it does appear that they would be able to reach, at least the minimum threshold of 51%.
Okay.
I have one question. Now, I don't think I really understand exactly what we're voting on. Is it that that these three are competing for $17,000, or is there $17,000 per applicant available?
They're competing for the 17,000 that we have available to reprogram, 17,000 and change.
So we have to make a choice. I apologize for interrupting you. So we have to make a choice between the three applicants. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, theoretically, sometimes the committee, chooses to divide up the funds. However, what I will say is we know that, it's not a ton of money. Normally, most public service projects that we fund during the regular action plan come in at about $20,000. And if we divide it, that means more work on the administrative end, our end, creating the contracts, which could delay the disbursement. So I would recommend trying to direct it all to one agency, but that's certainly up to the committee.
Okay.
I actually have, and not to take us too far off from discussing the applications, but So this is reprogram funds, excuse me, that were granted to, the majority of the 17,000 was granted to Salvation Army, and they were unable to complete the project. And then a small amount of the remaining funds were granted to Alternatives Federal Credit Union. Now, my question has to do with alternatives. On the grant summary, which we'll discuss towards the end of the meeting, it still shows that they have approximately $29,000 of unexpended funds. And I know that they, at one point, I remember maybe it was April or May, we had talked about it, and they said that they thought they'd be able to voucher for the majority of that $29,000. So my question is, how sure are we that they're going to be able to capture that? Because we may end up with more, perhaps even a great amount of funds that will need to be reprogrammed if Alternatives is unable to utilize or to voucher for that remaining 29,000.
Did you want me to answer, or Tracy?
I kind of remember us talking about that could go back to the loan fund, because extra money was taken from the loan fund this year to support programs. And that would that's economic development, so it could go back in the loan fund.
So
Okay.
the funds that these reprogram funds are Salvation Army, about 2,000 from the Child Development Council's coming back.
Child Development Council. Okay.
And
all right.
475 from INHS, their ERAP program. That wasn't enough to, and as Tracy said, exactly, the Alternatives, Nels is still working with them, to kind of get their final voucher. But yes, it was discussed to go back to the ED loan fund. There may be more CDBG CV funds that come in. We're working with a couple other agencies that, like St. John's, this is going to be part of my staff report or the grant summary, but St. John's, they did do the work for the HVAC system that they had an award for. They're having trouble with the Davis-Bacon documentation that they need to submit. So we've given them a deadline of at the end of July to, submit or have further discussion with us. So there may be other funds coming back in small or larger amounts, but right now this is what we have available.
Okay, great. Thank you for that correction to my assumption, Tracy.
I also just have to say that as I'm looking at what I have open on my other device here, and I'm going through I didn't get the even page. I have blank pages. So there's more pages in here when I'm looking at it up here than I had on what I opened in my mail, which is weird.
So strange. Yeah.
So I'm missing, I thought, well, maybe there's just blank pages in the middle or whatever. But no, I'm seeing a lot more information up here.
Okay. I wonder if I wonder if you're looking, well, it doesn't matter, but
yeah.
I wonder if the item that I sent out on Tuesday was flawed. I had trouble making a PDF out of this with Adobe kept wanting to merge it all into one application. But anyway, so
here we are.
Yes.
I've seen part of it, but I'm also seeing more now.
If you want me to go to any particular page on screen, I can do that.
Could you go back to what they're talking about, the PP, whatever we call it?
The PPE?
Okay, wait a minute. Yeah. Okay, right there. To offset a year. Wait, stop, please. 10,000 payroll.
It's odd that there's been the inconsistency here, because I got everything in both emails, the separate with the PDFs and then the full agenda. So yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe it has to do with our individual security settings.
No, but I mean, I've got page 3 of 8, for instance, and then it's like, no page, no page, no page, no page, no page. And then I've got page 8 of 8, it's weird.
I wonder if that has to do with the version of Acrobat Reader. Because at one point,
maybe
I got a message that was like, download a new version of Acrobat. So
I don't know. Whatever, we'll make the best of it.
It's annoying.
Fine. Yeah.
I will say that hopefully, normally what we post on the city's website, if in the future anybody's having problems, or just reach out to me and I'd be happy
I'll
to.
check there next time.
Yeah.
I was looking at this last night and I thought, oh, blank pages, how odd, but
Yeah.
oh well. Whatever. Okay, so it's part that and it's part to accommodate strategy for reduced exposure points. That's the guiding back and forth to classrooms, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
Are they fully enrolled right now?
No, they're not.
Okay. Okay.
Is that by, do you know if that's by design or just people, the demand is not there?
That's a great question. I can reach out to her to get more clarification. Again, my impression was it had to do with the guidelines they put in place at the beginning of the pandemic to prevent like overcrowding, or like full capacity was seen as like perhaps not being the
Right.
safest way, but I can certainly reach out and get the clarification that you need.
I concluded that they aren't fully enrolled by design because of the fact that they have a waiting list of 105 families.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I don't think that they would have the waiting list if they wanted to, that many people, if they wanted to
Yeah, and we
be
do know
fully
that
funded.
childcare is in demand. So that's, again, concurring with Steve. I believe the reason for their not being fully enrolled has to do with the pandemic. I'm not sure if part of it is not being able to staff at the levels that would be either mandated by the state or recommended due to COVID. But if you want more information, in fact, I will send an email while we are talking and maybe she'll respond back.
And I seem to remember that historically they have had a waiting list.
They have, yeah.
Mhm. I mean, daycare is one of those things that often is wanted more than there's available.
Yeah. Any other questions about the DICC application? Any comments?
No.
Okay. So the third application is OAR. I know that starts on page 22 of our packet.
Okay. Okay. I just emailed Krista, so if she gets back to us during the meeting, I'll share that information with you. And okay.
And you'll see that OAR's proposal is 3 parts. To have a peer navigator for their clients. They have a laundry services because they work with a lot of people who you know, are extremely low income or not housed properly and need the funds for cleaning their clothes and etc. And then bus passes to allow folks to get around to appointments to work.
Could we go through, well, excuse me, could we just go through those pages slowly, Anissa, so I could see the pages I'm missing?
Yes, and I also reached out to Dave because they had a blank, their project goals were blank, so I just want to read to you what he
Oh, yeah. Okay.
said. The goal, one of the main goals of OAR outreach is to stabilize individuals in our community. The grant will allow for additional outreach and support hours and the ability to provide support. Oops, sorry, this got cut off. Stabilization complemented by OAR core services, including linkages and referrals to appropriate services and supports.
Okay.
Okay, so as you might have noticed, there is a new executive director who he previously worked with the county.
Okay, this is the page I want to look at more.
Okay.
You know, given the difficulties we've had with folks receiving this full, either not receiving it or not receiving the full packet, Do we feel comfortable making a decision today?
Not sure.
I feel comfortable.
Yeah, I'm okay with it, but you know, of the three applications, this one seemed to be the most impactful, I should say. I mean, the children's center that we just discussed, they're basically looking to pay somebody to walk the kids. If you read what they say, to walk the kids to the classroom. And I'm thinking, you know, you can get a volunteer parent to do that. I mean, I don't know. It just seemed like, I'm sure somebody getting paid will be doing multiple things, but this one just seems like they're really being able to spend the money into their program and enhancing it. It just, like I said, it seemed the most impactful use of the 17,000.
Could you move this up just a little, Anissa, because I'm still reading it, thanks.
Has Anissa, for your sake, has OAR been efficient in billing and?
I
all
think
that,
they had a few bumps. I did have to reach out to Deb when she was still there. There have been a couple times when I've reached out and I haven't heard back, but you know, they have been in this transition time with getting a new executive director. Dave has been responsive. Like when I sent him this, he responded, he asked questions and so on. So I wouldn't say, I mean, I think whatever difficulties they had were surmountable. I think
Okay.
that we could, you know, now get in touch with the executive director if they had any trouble billing.
Okay, good.
Could you
I will
also
say,
oh, sorry.
I was a little confused. When I spoke to him on the phone, he said that they were interested in perhaps the staffing part. I thought that they were going to perhaps try to engage another peer to work alongside Richard Rivera. That's what he originally discussed. And he originally discussed a stipend. If it was a stipend, that's a little difficult to do with HUD. I would suggest that they, unless it's an economic development activity, there's not a lot of guidance from HUD, but I would suggest that they put them on the payroll. That was going to be something I reach out to him about, but then the application came through and they weren't discussing up here. They were discussing extending Mr. Rivera's hours. And I think it is a little sparse in what the hours would be. It's very intriguing. They're thinking about doing nighttime hours, but he also said somewhere else in the, because here he says expand from 5 p.m. to midnight, which is a very interesting proposal. But elsewhere, the proposed schedule of work, he said right here below that they can't really estimate right now what those would be. Or, you know.
There's also, these are such very different things.
Yeah.
There's salary.
Mhm.
There's soap and suds, which I mean, how does this break down? And bus passes. I mean, what are we putting in each? Oh, here we are.
What's in
Okay.
the budget? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I didn't have. Okay. Let's just look at that for a minute. I mean, garbage tags wasn't even talked about in the thing.
Yeah, I was interested in that. Now, when I've talked to the street outreach team, which includes an OAR, Mr. Rivera, actually, the street outreach team that involves all the outreach workers in the city, you know, I talked to them about litter and the State Street corridor. We've talked about litter or just garbage in the encampments before. It's not clear to me. So one thing that is clear is that, you know, Mr. Rivera actually said that there have been times when, you know, he has just had garbage bags with him or in his car and has engaged a participant to help him do some litter cleanup. So the garbage tags are good for that. But it's what is clear is that garbage and litter have been a big problem during the pandemic. What's not clear is who exactly would be getting the garbage tags and how would they distribute them. I mean, garbage is garbage, I guess we could say that, but anything that helps decrease the garbage is a good idea. There are now dumpsters again in the encampment, so they don't need garbage tags there, but they could use those, if they wanted to pick up litter. So it's a little unclear how they would use the garbage tags.
I'm having a problem with this whole thing because now I'm looking at this and it's all into these things. Well, how much is that soap and suds worth for how many people? As you said, where are the garbage tags going and who's using them? A storage unit, and phones. Are phones not paid for anyplace else?
Okay, I don't know if phones being paid for necessarily anywhere else, but to your point, Tracy, I did have questions about these as well and the bus passes, because we need to make sure that there is a COVID tieback for HUD. And I could see how these things could all have a COVID tieback, or most of them, but it's not articulated in the application. Granted, Mr. Saunders is new to the agency, but we did discuss how there needs to be a COVID tieback. I could have provided more information if we wanted it. So there are a lot of things that are here in the budget that it may seem like a little bit, but we do need documentation for the COVID, how they are preventing, mitigating, preparing for COVID. So there's that.
Yeah, thank you, Anissa. That's a very good point.
Yep.
Because as Fernando said, I agree with him that, excuse me, the application from OAR struck me as also the most impactful. But again, one of the important things for our staff is to be able to tie this to COVID, because we then have to answer to HUD. In terms of the garbage tags, I say, let's remember that OAR just doesn't support folks who are housed or homeless rather, in the jungle. They have the property on West Buffalo Street, and some of their other clients are housed. And so, the garbage tag, the cost for that is extra, as is the bus passes and the phones for people who need a phone for, just general communication or for work. So it makes sense in terms of their clients, but again, how do you tie that to COVID, prevention? And that's a big issue here with this application. But just in terms of impact on most vulnerable populations, I think this application struck me as the most impactful.
Well, I echo everything Carl said. Reality is I was reading this stuff and I wasn't thinking COVID, but there you go. Thanks for reminding us, Anissa.
I wasn't that impressed with these applications, but maybe it's because I was missing pages, but I would want better documentation on this. I'm not disagreeing that it could be the most impactful, but I want to know how this is going. What are we talking about? What needs to be documented here, especially when it's coming back to the office and everybody has to check off these boxes. This is a lot of different boxes to check off.
Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I feel differently about this, and I would, because I'm thinking that childcare probably has the biggest impact in terms of COVID related things. In just having someone available that will help them to increase the number of students that they can provide childcare. I mean, families that they can provide childcare to. So, I mean, that's why I asked this specific question about, are these people competing against one another for this funding? Because I personally feel that childcare deserves it a little bit more than, say, the OAR I mean, I happen to live near part of the jungle, and I see the impact of what's going on. And I don't really see anything within this budget that would change what's happening off Cecil Malone Drive.
My original inclination was for childcare too, but again, I don't think it's that well documented. I mean, I think that the big issue has been not enough staff to enroll as many children as possible. And I just, somehow that just going back and forth to the classrooms doesn't sound like quite enough. And I'm not impressed with paying more for PPE at this point. But I agree. I mean, I think in terms of COVID, there's been a tremendous impact on childcare. Also, when I think about the OAR proposal, it's not saying that everybody living in the jungle is part of the OAR clientele. So I don't know. And are people using the dumpsters that are available to them when they're available? I mean, I've seen an awful lot of trash. I don't know if the dumpsters are also full.
On Cecil Malone Drive, the dumpster is there. It's a large container, and it's difficult to determine whether or not they're using it. I mean, there is stuff in the containers, but there's a lot of stuff on the ground. So it's really hard to tell. I mean, I see once in a while somebody dragging something to the container, but it's a mess, and it's growing, which is
I agree.
one of those things that I guess that's part of what's going on in America. It's just more expensive, and there's more homeless people.
Well, going down Cherry Street, it's a big giant mess. I mean, there's right next to the water. I don't see that as a good thing. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not feeling like any of these proposals were that strong, but that's me.
Okay, so let me just also jump in with some, I don't know if it'll clarify, but they did have a limited time to do the proposal. And last time we spoke, actually, I was a little concerned because I was giving them this old application that's multi-pages, because I thought that would make it easier for them. But you did say to me last time, we don't want them to have to do over like 2 written pages. So I think all told, it's not that much writing they had to do, but we did put some limits on, we didn't say it had to be the most thorough proposal. We can reach out with questions. I did already reach out to them with some questions. As to the dumpsters, in addition to the Cecil Malone one, I think that so I had heard that at the street outreach meeting I just went to, or was it the COC meeting, they've deployed some new dumpsters. My impression was behind Lowe's. They had just put them there, so they were really trying to encourage people, outreach people, to encourage encampment residents to use them. I want to just underline that not all of, as Carl's already said, not all of OAR's clientele are homeless. In fact, only a portion of them are. I do believe that because, the homeless folks have a lot of needs. So especially in terms of health. So I think that's why the extended hours, if they could do, but what's unclear to me from their application is how solid is that plan to do the extended hours? Because extended hours would be something quite different. Again, I don't know that they would be able to meet health needs during those extended hours. That's another question. The DICC proposal, to Fernando's point, I mean, I think it is a good question. Could a volunteer parent help walk the kids back and forth? However, they are a licensed childcare, so their staff members have to have a certain level of certification. I'm not sure where volunteerism comes in. I think it's a little different than my co-op nursery school when I was a kid. I'm not sure, so we can reach out and find out more. And I guess thirdly, I understand that perhaps there isn't the same level of detail or just detail that you would all like. I guess yes, we could delay doing this, but part of the reason we're looking to reprogram these funds is so that they can get expended by when HUD wants them expended. And, Charles still has other applications. Other contracts he's working on, very complicated ones right now, the North Side one and so on. So, it's a timeline thing as well.
You're saying, please don't extend.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not. I just want to say I'm trying to acknowledge all the constraints, and I understand that this isn't like the most perfect process. That's
Okay.
all. But if you want to extend, of course, that's
Mhm.
your prerogative.
Mhm.
Just kick that can down the road.
So I didn't hear any, or not say any, enthusiasm for the Catholic Charities application. Of the three, it sounds like the Catholic Charities is number 3, and it's really between OAR and DICC. Is that a accurate
Sort of.
assessment?
Sort of, but we know that Catholic Charities puts our money to good use and does it in a timely manner and has been, quite good at fulfilling the contract that we arranged with them. So,
And it's aligned with COVID, and
yeah,
we shouldn't penalize them because their application is a little bit vanilla, it's just expanding what they already do, but there's nothing wrong with that when what they do is good service.
Yeah. Well,
It may
certainly.
not be ambitious, but it may be also more realistic. It's only $17,000. It's not you're going to start a whole new program with that.
Mhm.
It makes sense that you're going to enhance what you're doing or provide more of it. So I'm okay with Catholic Charities.
Okay.
Well, there we go. Now we've got all 3 back in the mix.
Sorry about
Catholic
that.
Charities did seem to, in their application, they talked a lot about health and the needs that they're meeting related to COVID. So
Yeah, it was on target with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was
So,
a
And-
clear connection, I think.
So the
So maybe
question
they win
is,
by default.
yeah. Because, we do have questions about OAR and DICC. So the question is, do we ask Anissa to reach out to them to answer those questions? We could, and we've done this before, once we get the answers to those questions, then by email, kind of decide, because we do have the action item, the resolution that we'll need to plug an agency name in, or we could just make a decision now. But I given the questions we have, it would seem to me it would be fairer to get the answers to those questions to kind of fully fill in the picture for us before making a decision.
Okay. I guess my biggest questions are about OAR. And my biggest questions are how, when we get down to that last budget thing, there are so many different categories. I want to know how many people are being, or what is really going on with that. And what was the storage unit for again?
I don't think it was described, honestly, in the
I
application.
thought I saw that they have some folks that occasionally they do need storage if they're in transition between units or transition between housing, or they become unhoused, that there has to store their possessions. But I think I saw that. Maybe that's just a.
I do think that that's always a need for people who are moving. Again, what's the COVID tieback though?
Well, right.
Yeah,
What I
right.
don't see is the connection with COVID, and that's going to be a big problem there.
Right.
Now, Anissa, how how impactful is it to delay this decision further? I want, we went through a process, and if we have a valid applicant, does it make sense? Is it better for you and staff to just make a decision at this point rather than drag it out to another month?
Well, one thing I could suggest, if I can get your, all the questions down, what I can do is, like, I just reached out to Krista at DICC, I can send them an email while we're talking, because you do have another agenda item coming up, and we can see if anybody responds in a timely way. How impactful is it? I mean, I would never want the committee to feel like they're being rushed into a decision, not having full information. However, at the same time, I would say that if you were looking at these applications in the context of a regular review session where there was a really firm deadline, I mean, I guess in a regular review session, you do have me reach out, and then the next month you come and look at it again. So there is that, or the next week. I guess I guess if you're asking me, I would prefer, I think it would be good to have the decision made so that we can go forward with getting, a contract, which still could take a couple months. It's, it's still going to be some time before they get the actual funds. So I feel like it would help with the expediency of it. However, like I said, this is really up to you. And if you feel like there's just not enough information, or they're not, the applications are not detailed enough for you to make the decision, or for any other reason you want to wait, we can certainly do that.
Tracy?
Anissa, I'd like to ask you, did you have an impression about which was the best of these applications?
Well, I will say that all three of them were very appreciative for being reached out to.
Sure.
And I will say that OAR had the least amount of time, because it wasn't clear to me that Mr. Saunders was in that position, and I couldn't get his email from their website. And so then I emailed him, and then it took him a minute. So I will say that OAR perhaps had the least amount of time to do it. At the same time, I mean, and he's new, but the application is not as detailed as I'd like to see it be, especially in regard to if they're expanding the outreach hours, which I think is a very interesting idea, how it ties back to COVID. I think that they're talking about dealing with real needs. And he did say that there has been an uptick in the number of clients that they're seeing, like non-duplicates. They've kept those numbers. He didn't cite those in his application. So I think the question with the OAR one is, what exactly are the COVID tiebacks? I think they would like to perhaps fund a little bit of everything, which I don't think that they need to do that with this money. Could they? So there's that. Do they have funds that they could shift around and make work? DICC, we've talked here at length about how childcare is a big need in the community. DICC, we know, it also has spent their funds down very responsibly and quickly, like ISP, Immigrant Services Program. So there's that. I also wanted to mention, as far as the airborne versus the touching, I think also remembering that it's only been recently that children could be vaccinated, like very, very recently. So I also wonder if part of the, that part of the PPE is masks. And I don't know if part of this is for parents' concerns. They want to make sure their kids have a lot of access possibly to the PPE. I'm not sure. So, and then finally, when I talked to Immigrant Services Program, it was clear to me immediately that they are doing a lot of stuff related to COVID completely, I mean, on their own, because they see that's a need. And they are meeting very vulnerable populations. I hadn't thought about the fact that they were gonna, that they've had a lot of families who live in the area who have relatives in Ukraine that they're trying to help now. So they're always working with new populations, in addition to the people that they work with, I think, more regularly. I don't know, it sounds like they're doing a lot of solid work in relation to preventing COVID.
Thanks. There we have it.
And, I will note that in OAR's application, in the narrative, they do tie the budget items to health, but it's not necessarily COVID related. So for example, someone's homeless and they have a medical issue that needs to be taken care of, and it may take them away from their encampment for a long period of time, at least there's a place where it could be stored. There's a bus pass to get them to wherever they need to go for this treatment. There's a phone so they can be in communication with the counselor or the folks at OAR. So, they do tie it to medical, but again, not necessarily COVID related. So, the question still remains, how does this tie to COVID?
Yeah.
So that's a little, there's some justification, I think, in the narrative, which is, I think, is the page 23, the second page of their application. Steve?
I mean, in defense of the drop-in center, I don't have any personal connection to the drop-in center. I just happen to be a grandparent. And my grandchildren were home for the past 2 weeks from bringing home COVID from a school. I mean, my oldest granddaughter brought home COVID from her last day at school. So it's something that's happening, and the regulations that I see for my grandchildren is that they actually have to stay home once COVID has been determined in the school. So there's a lot of precautions that need to come up in relation to COVID in a daycare center. My youngest grandchild had a little mask. I've never seen anything this small. The KN95 mask that fit over her face, but she wore it. It's just so. I mean, the PPE, and I don't think that I could just go out here and find a mask that would fit a 2-year-old at the local grocery store or the local drugstore. So I see that there's COVID related items in the drop-in center's application. I mean, I personally can see the connection to the COVID related items in the drop-in center's application.
Yep.
So a couple of options here. Anissa suggested one that, she did send out a couple of emails, and we could table this discussion for now, go on in our agenda and see if we get an answer by the time, excuse me, by the time we've discussed the other items, or we could see if we are able to reach a decision on one of the 3 applications now, and move on to the resolution and put a name in it. But before we do that, I think let's see if we can get a consensus. Do we want to wait for the more information from DICC and OAR? Do we feel that we can make a decision right now of the 3? I would feel comfortable waiting and getting some answers to the questions that we proposed to OAR and DICC prior to making a decision. Tracy, your thoughts?
Why ask me?
I'm going to ask everybody.
Okay, all right. Why do I have to be first? I would be comfortable. I mean, we might also say what we're leaning to right now.
Mhm.
At this point, I would lean toward daycare.
Okay. Steve?
I'm in agreement with Tracy. I think that I've already mentioned that I'm in agreement with daycare.
Okay, Fernando?
I think the most practical application, I think, is the one from Catholic Charities, but I would not oppose funding the daycare project. So, you know, if others want that, I'm on it. I'm with it.
So it sounds,
What
All
about
right,
you,
It seems to
Carl?
me like we could have, you know, we could go ahead and consider the daycare proposal. If somebody would give a motion.
And then I'll make the motion that we extend the funding, the additional funding to the drop-in center.
I'd second that. Although I have to put a PS on that. I also am not opposed to the Catholic Charities proposal too. So, you know, it's like, here we are. But I would second the daycare.
Okay.
so let me ask a question then before we vote. Do we wish to wait until we get and see if we get the answers back from the director? Anissa did email her for some clarifications, or it sounds like we may be comfortable just on the strength of what we've seen so far in our discussion, going ahead with a vote. Does anyone feel that we need to wait for the answers to the questions?
Could we review the questions again, please?
You're muted, Anissa.
Sorry about that. I think you actually came up with more questions after I emailed her, so I can email her more. I think the question I asked her, sorry, I'm having a little trouble moving this, is the question I asked, it has to do with PPE, which was, is DICC fully enrolled? And if not, is this due to COVID protocols or another reason? So I'm now emailing her again. So further questions you want to know is, could a volunteer aid in some of the work you are doing? What else? What else did you want to know from DICC?
Can you all hear that noise behind me? That's construction.
I think, let's see. I think the other question had to do with, well, as Steve mentioned, the PPE, and is this, I guess, for want of a better term, specialized PPE specifically for youth or for little kids, actually, versus stuff you can just go and purchase. And the documentation of any PPE, as you mentioned, Lisa, that might be a concern that, you know, we want to make sure that everything can be documented.
They already said that everything can be documented.
Okay, good.
Also, okay, so since there is now more evidence that COVID is airborne,
I mean, there's lots of PPE, masks are PPE, keeping a distance is PPE, air business is PPE. You know, probably not having undue exposure to people, maybe that walking down the hall business can be related to that too. So there you have it, all that.
okay.
But I mean, we can ask some endless questions and we could ask others lots of questions too. I don't know, expecting somebody to get back to us in the next time of the meeting seems,
That's true.
you know, it's hard. Mhm.
Just to let you know, the questions I have is, could a volunteer aid in some of the work that you're doing greeting kids, or is this a regulatory barrier? More detail on PPE. Is there special PPE needed for this population? Since there's now more evidence that COVID is airborne transmission, is there still a need for certain kinds of PPE?
Well, the other thing is the PPE can also relate to the providers
True,
because,
true.
yeah.
Okay.
All right, so I propose that, so we have a motion, a second, a third, I'm sorry, a motion and a second. I propose that we table the vote for now and postpone it to the end of the meeting,
Okay.
waiting to see if we get a response from the director or I guess the director. Is that who you emailed?
Krista is her position. I don't know if it's still the same as administrative assistant. Their new director doesn't arrive, I believe, until the 11th, she said on the application.
Oh,
So
okay.
Krista submitted this application herself on behalf of the organization.
Okay. All right, then let's table this for now and we'll come back to our vote. Is that all right?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay with me.
All right, and we'll move on to our next item, which is the policies and procedures for, excuse me, for a tenant-based rental assistance program. Anissa?
Yeah, this is a fun one. Okay, let me get it on your screen. So,
Can I ask just one question first?
yeah.
So right now, our Catholic Charity security deposits fall into this category.
And also
Learning Web.
correct, yes.
Okay, so that's all we have in it right now, in this kind of
Yes.
category.
Yeah,
Okay, got it.
that's correct. So sorry, this doesn't want to come up on my screen. Let me.
I just say, I read this and it's so daunting. Who would want to do this?
I
Yikes.
know, I agree, right?
Yeah.
It's true. So the main reason that we're doing, not the main reason, the reason that we decided to put together a handbook is because there are a lot of regulations which, you know, are certainly available to the program sponsors who have projects that are tenant-based rental assistance. There's a lot spelled out in their contracts as it is, but it will be helpful to have them all in one place, which is why they're here all in one place. Also, you know, as we during the pandemic, as we attended, because HUD was really emphasizing tenant-based rental assistance as a strategy during the pandemic for
Mhm.
distributing aid to the community. And the HUD reviewed a lot of the regulations and various webinars and so on. So it just became clear to us that that we would like to see just that there needed to be more clarity in the programs that we were sponsoring, and that there needed to be a ready reference for people so that we could ensure that everybody was being compliant. So yeah, we feel that it, you know, in reviewing how the particularly the not the security deposits, but the actual rental assistance program we're working, they will need to make some changes to their program to realign with what the regulations actually say. So it is important that we have this document. We've already had those discussions with the Learning Web. They are working on that. But yeah, there's a need for this. So if you want me to summarize particularly what the issues are, one is that tenants who are receiving tenant-based rental assistance need to have choice. So they need to know that they can go out into the community, and if they can find a landlord that will accept their subsidy for the Learning Web, and if that landlord's unit will pass the inspection, then that could be an option for Learning Web youth. So, or they could be offered, you know, an apartment that Learning Web already has available. So they need to know that there's choice. The Learning Web already had the document included with their agreement with the youth, that so the youth knows, and the landlord needs to know that the landlord cannot ask the youth to waive certain rights, or anybody that receives tenant-based rental assistance cannot be asked by the landlord, cannot even sign anything saying I'm going to waive my rights. You know, if there becomes an eviction hearing, I'm going to waive my right to go to court, any of that. They cannot. So they already had that in place. But the lease itself needs to be with the youth and the landlord, which one of the attractive things about the Learning Web's program was that it's the Learning Web was leasing, and then it's kind of a sublease to the youth. So landlords, I think, found that attractive because they're really working with the Learning Web. However, the lease needs to be with the youth. So we're talking to our attorney to see if there's a mechanism see if the attorney can come up with a mechanism to easily assign the lease to the youth. Another thing that we've suggested, which is very common in this college town, as all of you know, that the Learning Web could be act as a third party or a guarantor to the lease, which landlords are very familiar with in this community. So those were the two main issues that we saw. And as I said, the Learning Web's already working on this, but we want to make sure that for the project sponsors, for the future, and everything, that we have a guide that it's easy enough for them to go to and look at. Yes.
Tracy?
I had a question about eligible activities and costs. When it says the second and the third one, security deposits in conjunction with rental assistance in an amount not to exceed 2 months rent for the unit. But then it says security deposits only in an amount not to exceed 1 month's rent for the unit per New York State law. Why do we have both of those?
So good, Tracy. You have such a good eye. Okay, we discussed this one actually in the interim between when I sent this and when we talked about, or when you got this. So we're changing that to 1 month's rent.
Okay.
I believe I was advocating for the guide to spell out what is eligible, kind of under the HUD regulations, whether or not their contracts do that, because their contract is more specific. But since the state law is different, we're changing that line. In fact, I will find that after, make sure that the latest version is.
So I had a question regarding that too. So New York State law says that the security deposit cannot be more than 1 month's rent. So you can't do first and last month, for example, as a security deposit.
The landlord cannot ask that. That was changed in the 2019 tenant protections bill that came out. They limited, it used to be that landlords could ask for like first, last, and another month.
Right.
And they changed that because that ended up being a lot of money. So
Right.
Actually, though, you're bringing up a really important point, Carl, that I hadn't thought about. And I think Nels was looking at this from a different standpoint, that the security deposit amount that the landlord could ask for had changed, but that doesn't necessarily. So I think he was thinking that we should just codify that it can't be. It's honestly, it's not that relevant, given that they only can, their contract spells out that they can only do 1 month's rent for with the amount of money that we give.
Mhm.
However, we'll clarify that so it's consistent in the handbook.
And that change to the law for tenant protections, was that New York State or national?
That was New York State in 2019, like November of 2019.
Okay.
So all these protections went into effect like right before the pandemic.
Mhm.
Side note, so as a result, it's been hard to see kind of what the impact of them has been, because people have been in their units not being able to move.
Mhm.
So anyway, yeah. What other questions?
There are some providers of group homes. So, and I can't remember the name of the residence, but Catholic Charities has the home for women, the supportive housing. I guess is the word I want. Is tenant-based rental assistance available to the residents of those houses, or it depends on how their lease is structured?
Transitional housing is not eligible. For tenant-based rental assistance, there needs to be a lease of at least 12 months.
Okay.
And the thing we do with a place of our own is we fund staff, not, but we've talked about this before when OAR was trying to apply for tenant-based rental assistance kind of stuff, but they couldn't sign a year's lease with people or something. So, I mean, that's a big restriction if you have to have a year's lease, and that's in here.
Yeah, you do have to. For
Yeah.
tenant-based rental assistance and security deposits, I think OAR came to us in two different ways. One was to have rental assistance for Endeavor House. And that was exactly the issue, Tracy, that you brought up, is that they, unless they have a year's lease, they can't receive tenant-based rental assistance. And another factor in that case was because Endeavor House is meant to be a place where people can transition into another unit. The idea, tenant-based rental assistance is portable after the first 12 months. So that's the thing. They were thinking like, well, maybe they can take it with them immediately. And no, the regulations are really, as we read them, as I read them, is the first 12 months are in the unit that has been chosen and has a lease. If more months of tenant-based rental assistance are being offered, then the tenant could take it somewhere else. But the first 12 months have to be in the same place. So that was that. And then with the security deposits, when OAR wanted to do that, since Catholic Charities has this well-developed system and it's a lot of work, we suggested they make an agreement with Catholic Charities, and they did. Sorry, go ahead.
I had a question about the sunshine houses that OAR is going to be doing. Are those going to be years leases, or are those much more interim than that?
That question came up in the COC meeting, and it seems like there wasn't a super solid answer, but it's intended to be mostly transitional. Like they're anticipating people, their original plan, I think, was that people would stay there for up to 6 months.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if that changes as they find that people have trouble finding a place to transition into. But yes, it sounds like it was intended to be less than a year.
Thank you.
Anissa, is this policy new, or is it an update of the previous?
The policies are not new. That's why. That's why.
I'm sorry. I should let me rephrase that. Is this handbook, this document, is new? So in other words, there was not a document prior to this that we gave to our providers.
There wasn't a handbook. There would be a lot of this detail is spelled out in the contracts itself.
Okay.
But we felt like it would be good to have it as a handbook all in one place. And then we could also give it to, for example, if others are thinking about doing a program like this in the future, we can give it to them and they can see all these regulations all in one place.
Say, are you sure you want to do this? Look what you need to do.
It's complicated, yeah.
And it's quarterly or something, right? It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. And we may, hopefully we have it nailed in now so that only minor changes will have to be made over time. But yeah, it's a lot of detail.
A lot of work to put it together, Anissa.
We used another one as a model, but still surprisingly, it was there was still a lot. And of course, Charles made sure it was very nicely formatted and that there was a lot of extra detail, and a lot of extra stuff there. Yeah. So
I did want to go back to one of Tracy's questions. So under eligible activities and costs, there was the two statements about security deposits, and one said, not to exceed 2 months rent for the unit, and one said security deposits not to exceed 1 month's rent. What did we say we're gonna do about that discrepancy?
We'll make it consistent. So I'll
Alright.
go, I thought we had already made it consistent that we were gonna put 1 month
Okay,
in there, but I wanted to follow up on your question also and find out what because you had also asked me the question, does that mean that landlords can only ask for first months? So I would try to find that out for you too.
okay, great. The other thing, and I guess because, my question had to do with, I guess, staff in monitoring compliance with this, which I guess staff has been doing already, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is not really much of a change. In fact, it might make it easier if the client or if our providers have this policy, this manual in hand.
I mean, yeah, as far as our monitoring, I mean, the programs have been monitored up until now. So yeah, I think the guidebook is to make sure that there's something that we can both refer to easily if a question comes up.
Yeah, because there's so many providers or so many landlords rather, and so many clients, and having that consistency under the policy. I was just wondering how difficult that has been.
Well, I think, with security deposits, I don't think it's been difficult at all. I mean, questions do come up, but there's always questions. It's amazing how there can always still, with the program as long running as security deposits, there can still be a question that hasn't been answered come up. That happened just the other day. But and that's the volume that we see with the tenant-based rental assistance. The rental assistance is so confusing. They call TBRA, whatever. But the rental assistance where the rent is being paid, we normally, when Learning Web has a contract with us, it's normally for between 6 and 8 individuals. It is more complicated, and we have spelled out more in this handbook, because while security deposits we will allow, and the PJ, the participating jurisdiction, can do this, it can be required that the security deposit be in the city, or it can be anywhere in the in the surrounding area. We've chosen that because we know it's hard for people to find places in the city. With the rental assistance, we want it to be in the city, because the whole point of, in our mind, part of the point of the having rental assistance is that they're close to services, they're close to the jobs they would be applying for, etc. So they can submit a written request to rent a unit outside. Learning Web can, for the student to rent a unit outside the city, and I know that they in the past have had 1 unit up by Trip Hammer anyway. So they would need to come to us first. So that's a bit of a change. I mean, like I said, it's going to require the Learning Web to go to landlords and ask for the lease to be assigned to the student. I mean, obviously that's a change in the program. That's, I don't think it would be an understatement to say that that's causing some, discomfort, because it creates an unknown, like, will their landlord work with them? I would hope that these landlords who've worked with Learning Web for so long would then be primed to be like, yes, I understand that this is what you need to do now. We're still going to be working with you. But yeah, that is a change for them. So I don't think once they make this transition programmatically, I don't think that it's going to, I mean, for this year, or for the year that this will apply to, which is 2021, they haven't started drawing down those funds yet, but they want to, but they're going to need to make these changes before they do. Yeah, I think that represents a change for Learning Web, but I think once we go through it, then it'll be monitoring just like we used to.
Could I just ask how that works in reality? I mean, normally we have given money directly, granted money to the Learning Web, and then they have been paying the rent to the landlords, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So right now we're saying we give the money to the Learning Web, then the Learning Web picks eligible people, and then do they give the money to them directly, or do they give the money to them each month to pay the rent? I mean, and then does the Learning Web still have a guarantee with the landlords? Because I think that may be one of the things that's been most appealing for the landlords.
Yeah, that's why we're suggesting. So I mean, you can look at it as, all right. So yes, as I explained before, the Learning Web has entered into the lease with the landlords in the past.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
the landlords like that. Master leasing is not allowed under this
Okay.
stream of money, under home. So that's why the landlord needs to make the lease with the youth, but the Learning Web can be a guarantor, just like what you talked about, Tracy. The Learning Web is still involved. The money does go to the Learning Web, who does write the check to the landlord. That's my understanding. That's always how tenant-based rental assistance type subsidies work, is like the landlord gets a check. It doesn't go through the tenant's hands. But I mean, HUD's, I can't speak to HUD's exact thinking on this, but I can speak from the perspective of the Learning Web. It's not necessarily, I'm not speaking for the Learning Web, but having the youth sign the lease, in my mind, aligns with the program's goals, which is familiarizing the youth with all aspects of renting, right? Whereas when the Learning Web signs the lease, the youth isn't necessarily reviewing that. So what exactly changes? I don't know if I've answered your question. The landlord still gets the money from the Learning Web. The landlord and the Learning Web can still have a third agreement, the Learning Web acting as a guarantor, if the landlord wants that. So the change is that the youth needs to explicitly know that they have choice. If the youth can find a unit that's acceptable, that the landlord will accept their TBRA, then they need to have a choice to do that. Now, realistically, do I think that there are a lot of landlords clamoring to utilize another kind of rental assistance? We haven't seen that with any of the vouchers that exist in the community. So, but definitely the youth going out there and trying to do it is not a bad experience. So those are the main things that change.
Okay, but in reality, the Learning Web is still paying the landlord directly.
Yes.
We've now put the tenant in as signing the lease, or if you could always say to them if they wanted to find something else that would agree to have this form of payment. Okay, so
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a technicality. It's not like you're not handing the tenant the money all at once and saying, here, you do this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you could say it's technicalities that, apparently are important to HUD.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. So it doesn't seem like the landlords would be that concerned about it if they still are. Yes, well, there's a damage issue, but I don't know.
Well, one would hope, right? And I think that, I mean, this is where I think the Learning Web is feeling, probably feeling discomfort, because the landlords have been, that they've worked with, is like they, I think any kind of change represents, unknown. My hope would be that these landlords have worked with the Learning Web for quite some time. So,
Yeah, got it.
but I do know that the landlords still act like landlords in this community, where they have pressured the Learning Web to like re-up those leases like well in advance of them expiring, which is what landlords do in this community, because they're always pressuring the students to do that, which was another aspect of kind of like, that's another aspect of what I think tenant advocates have been working on, trying to get it be more normal and in line with, when people would normally be considering re-upping their leases a month or two before they're up. So anyway.
I remember my shock when I moved to Ithaca and the landlord asked me in March, did I want to renew the lease for September? I was just like, what?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and that in this community, there's been a lot of, this is separate from the whole TBRA situation, but that's something in this community that people have really been trying to change. I don't know how changeable it is, because the landlords are used to doing it, and they like doing that. But what students find all the time is that like they've just moved in, it's not even been winter yet, they haven't even realized that their heat isn't working, and suddenly they've signed a lease for next year with the landlord, you know, so.
Yeah.
So for Catholic Charities and any other security deposit assistance programs that may come about, is there any increased burden on them? It doesn't
No,
look like it.
Not that I could tell. It seems like their programs they are ready to come to us if they're
Mhm.
going to be giving a security deposit outside the county. And that's what this handbook is also stating that they do. That's not a HUD regulation. We have that as our own. So I can't see anything really that would change for Catholic Charities.
Mhm.
Are there other questions regarding this policy? I mean, it's
No.
quite a huge job here that Anissa and Charles and Nels have done. All right. So if no further questions, we have a resolution. It's on page 49 of our agenda to accept for the agency to adopt the tenant-based rental assistance policies and procedures handbook.
Just to note that the attorney, our legal counsel, has not yet approved it. So you're approving this, the resolved makes note of that you would be approving whatever is reviewed and approved by the legal counsel.
Yeah, that was a question I had, because the way the resolve reads, it could be interpreted either way. That it has been as reviewed and approved, that it has been or it will be. So I was going to ask for clarification on that. So it has not been reviewed.
Yet.
Okay.
If you want me to move that somewhere else into a whereas, I actually thought about doing it somewhere else and put it.
I think
Would
that
you
Well-
like me to?
Go ahead, Tracy.
I think
hear
it
you.
makes sense to move it to a whereas, and then somehow adjust this last one, you know. But yeah, I'm comfortable with it as approved by the council.
Okay, so Tracy, do you have a suggestion where in the like new
No.
whereas?
No,
Okay.
I mean, or possibly you could just say resolve as it will be reviewed after it is reviewed and approved by the IURA legal counsel.
Okay.
I don't know.
Or
if that's bad.
dependent upon approval by
Okay.
council.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's good.
Okay.
right.
Okay.
So I will move our resolution as amended.
Okay, I'll second it.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion, questions? All right. All in favor of approving this resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, unanimous. Great. All right, then we'll move down to the grant summary.
Okay, so again, this is for May, so there'll have been some changes. The main one that we talked about last time, where it says no down here under CDBG CV for Salvation Army. In future grant summaries, you'll see that leftover funding was reprogrammed by whatever you decide. But other than that, I don't know if people had other questions.
I just had one about the
Mhm.
the COVID activities.
Mhm.
There's still a number that haven't spent money.
Yes.
So let's hope that let's hope they start doing that. Is there any progress on that?
Yeah, so the going down this list, obviously the INHS, their leftover funding is being reprogrammed right now. The OER is now done with their original. I don't think it's reflected on this one, but they're done with their original vouchering. Ithaca Cares about opening is reprogramming. That's Child Development Council. Catholic Charities is done, DICC is done, Salvation Army is being reprogrammed. Reach, they really need the voucher, and I have been in touch with them, and it's gonna be, I think it's gonna be a bit of a slog. Just because I think they are doing a lot as an organization, and they have like very small staff proportionally. Catholic Charities security deposits for safer housing, we were just discussing, they have like a couple more that they're going to be sending through. Then in all likelihood, they'll be returning some money for, or not returning it, we'll be reprogramming some of their money, probably a few $1,000s worth. The Advocacy Center, I have a meeting with Heather right after this meeting. Again, I think it's a documentation issue. That's what she said. I don't know why Black Hands Universal hasn't vouchered yet. We've had numerous conversations about compliant expenditures, and I think they're moving forward. We will be getting their quarterly report in a few days on the 15th. But again, I'm in pretty regular contact with Harry, so I'll ask him again why they haven't vouchered. But that was why ultimately we didn't reach out to them asking if they wanted to submit a proposal, because they really haven't vouchered yet. They are in contact though. Market discounts, don't know why they haven't vouchered. Oh, actually they had vouchered, and Kelly, when I asked her what was going on, she asked me, and apparently Charles and Kim both had a question for them, and that's what was holding up that voucher. But they have submitted their first voucher. HVAC is what I told you, St. John's, we've given them 30 days till the end of July to tell us a strategy for how they intend to, they've had some problems, like I said, documenting their Davis-Bacon compliance. We cannot pay them, reimburse them, even for work that's been done, if they did not document their Davis-Bacon, their subcontractors Davis-Bacon compliance. So they're working on that. The youth programming and the community outreach worker, those are MOUs that we just need to get signed by the city. It's not the city's fault, it's ours. We're just like so many other things happening when all the staff members in IURA have kind of bounced that one around. It's basically 99% there. So I think that those have already been expended. We just need to get the MOU out there.
Thanks.
A lot of detail. Don't know if you wanted that level of detail.
That's fine. And just for clarification, I know that the Davis-Bacon regulations have to do with the wage
Yes.
that the workers are paid. Is it so the subcontractors have to demonstrate the wage amount? Is that so? That's what St. John's was waiting for, to get that paperwork back from the subcontractors?
Yeah, exactly that. Unless the subcontractor is a sole proprietor. So, and does allow like for there to be corrected payroll, corrected certified payroll. So if there's like, if for some reason that's the hang up, they could go through a correction process, is our understanding.
All right. Before we, I'm sorry, any questions about, any other questions regarding the grant summary? Okay. And so before we go back to our motion on the reprogram funds, staff report, Anissa?
Sure. Okay, the GIAC gym project, I just emailed city engineer Tim Logue about that again. Haven't heard back, still on hold for the time being. That's a lot of money, but we encourage them. And they know that we'd like them to let us know the soonest, earliest opportunity. INHS had an open, or is having an open house this weekend. I hope you all got that invitation.
This weekend or next?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the weekend of
Next
the
weekend.
16th.
Yeah.
16th. Yeah. So 110 Auburn. I know you've all shown a lot of interest in that. I contacted Julie Holcomb about posting the various committees vacancies on like the city newsletter type things. I was told by Julie that they've discontinued the city newsletter. I don't know if that's the bulletin you were talking about that you got, or you used to get, Tracy, but she said that they would post it in their other channels, social media and some other places. So I don't know if so, but if there's something more specific that wasn't the city newsletter that you were talking about, Tracy, and you want to let me know, I'll find out from her. But as usual, she's very responsive and willing to do that. Also, in following up with another conversation we had about outreach to new applicants, I did reach out to Yasmin at Broken Promise Initiative, who was responsible. She's the one that submitted the application to the action plan this year, to see if she wanted to get together over the summer to discuss any other activities that they might be looking at, get some technical assistance in advance. I haven't heard back, so I'll probably give her another week or so and then reach out again. And it is on the agenda to visit No Mas Lágrimas. We had talked about that. She and I had talked about that, and various things happened, wasn't able to make it happen. Also, I'm recovering from COVID right now, so I can't do it for a little bit, but I will do that when I can.
Okay, and No Mas Lágrimas is having a festival. I saw
Yes.
it's coming up fairly
Yeah,
soon.
they are. Yeah, I think, again, now I'm getting my weekends confused. I'm not sure if it's this weekend or the same weekend as the 110 Auburn thing. But
Yeah.
yes, they are having a,
Let me see, I have it somewhere close by.
It's the 17th.
okay,
Oh,
so that's the
Sunday
day
the
after the
17th.
110 Auburn open house.
Yep, Sunday the 17th. Okay.
Everything's happening at once again, and summer in Ithaca, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we have 3 days to schedule our annual event.
I
so
know.
it's gotta-
When I first moved here, I was like, I moved in the like summer. I was like, gosh, there's so much happening all the time.
And there's winter.
Yeah, exactly, which lasts 9 months. No, only 6 months.
Okay.
But they're
And
dark.
so was that it, Anissa, in terms of staff report?
Yes.
All right, so we'll go back to our tabled motion on reprogramming CDBG CV funds. I guess the first question is, did Anissa, you get any response to our questions?
Oh, let me see. Hold on. I do see a new email. Don't know who it's from. Let's see. Okay. Yes. All right. Krista, what does she say? She says we would return to allowing volunteers in classrooms and have welcome back interns. However, to greet and escort a child independently, an individual must be cleared by the Office of Family Services, our licensor. Specific to PPE, although the community doesn't require masking because we care for the population which has just become eligible for COVID vaccination, we continue to mask our staff in the presence of children indoors. So we stock masks and sanitizers, as well as maintain our pandemic protocols to include frequent hand washing and sanitation of surfaces to reduce the sharing of germs and illnesses.
All right. Does that response answer, and talking to the committee members, answer the questions that were raised?
I'm good with it.
Okay, so our motion was moved by Steve, seconded by Tracy. And I'm sorry, I forget what page that resolution was on. Let me see if I can get back to it.
I'm gonna put it on screen.
Okay, great, thank you.
Looks like it's on page 29 or 30 of your packet.
There we go, page 30, I have it. So the resolved paragraph is that the committee recommends that the CDBG CB funds in the amount of, and this may change, but in the resolution, the amount of $17,475 be reprogrammed for downtown Ithaca Child Care Center, filling in the name, to be carried, or I'm sorry, the project name, which is, I'm not sure what the project name is, but the sponsor would be DICC. What do we say the project name is? Let me get back to that.
Be filled in.
To be filled in, yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever they said the project name was, but the DICC. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
Project name is Child Care, Health and Safety.
All right, thank you, Fernando. Child Care, Health and Safety to be carried out by Downtown Ithaca Child Care Center. All in favor of approving our motion that the funds be awarded to DICC?
Aye.
Aye. I'm sorry, Steve, did you vote?
Yes, aye.
Okay, okay, sorry, I didn't hear you, Steve. All right, so that's approved unanimously. Okay. And unless there's further business, I think we are done. This resolution, of course, will go to the IURA Board meeting at the end of the month. Don't anticipate any issues, concerns from the board on this. All right, so we will declare our meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
I want to
Good
thank
meeting.
you all.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
and
you.
thank you again, Anissa. We always appreciate the great work you do.
Oh, thank you.
Keeping us on track.
And to all of you, thank you for all your, a lot of work this committee does.
Yeah. Oh, and the one thing I will say, we are still, please keep in mind that, we are looking for someone else to join us. And I don't know if you all know that Eric Rosario had resigned from the IURA board. And so the mayor has appointed Donna Fleming as the new IURA board member. Donna Fleming was a common council rep. And I don't remember what ward she represented, or how long ago it was, but I know her name from when she was on council. But we are still looking for a committee member. So if you, I should also mention that the Economic Development Committee is, I believe, also still looking for at least one member. So as you, go about your business, try to think of folks who might want to be on either of the committees, our committee or Economic Development. Have to be a city resident and preferably someone who is interested, not necessarily currently involved in any kind of city committees or meetings, but someone who's interested in the city and improving just the lives for all of us. Dale Sherman. Okay, thanks, Anissa. All right, so with that, thank you. And see you all at some point.
Yep.
Yes. So we're playing this afternoon, Carl?
Yeah, you want me to make the reservation?
Sure.
Okay, so I'll do that at 2 o'clock.
Yep, I'll see you then.
Okay,